When a dominant corporation expands overseas, its domestic playbook often becomes its greatest liability. This data shows a stark divergence. On the left, BlackBerry controlled 41% of the global smartphone market in 2010, before experiencing a catastrophic collapse. On the right, Universal Studios Japan park attendance surged during a similar timeframe of international expansion. BlackBerry's headquarters maintained a rigid strategy, refusing to adapt to an external market shift demanding touchscreens. By the time leadership approved a hardware pivot to this touchscreen interface, consumer behavior had permanently moved on to Apple and Samsung. Universal Studios Japan avoided this rigid trap. To build the Osaka park, local managers executed thousands of micro-decisions. They carefully engineered a uniquely Japanese theme park that retained an American feel, aligning entirely with local cultural expectations. Entering a new market is simply a hypothesis. The operational control structure, how a company monitors results and dictates the authority to adapt, determines whether that hypothesis survives. In multinational management, control is the active mechanism of checking real-world results against corporate plans and taking corrective action. Today, we will deconstruct the precise frameworks that dictate how decisions are made, delegated, and controlled across borders. To map this out, we have to start with the baseline architecture of how global decisions are processed. There is no universal blueprint. A functional structure must align with a strict set of operational and cultural variables. Managerial decision-making follows a standardized path. This flowchart details the 9 formal stages of the decision-making process. The sequence begins with the analytical phases, recognizing a problem, defining the specific issues, and brainstorming possible alternatives. Then come the action phases, comparing the pros and cons, selecting the best option, and implementing the decision on the ground. The critical node is stage 9, control. In global operations, this final step acts as a continuous feedback loop. Monitoring results dictates whether a team must loop back and recheck earlier assumptions. Flawless execution at the implementation stage yields nothing if the oversight structure at stage 9 is blind to local realities. The core architectural dilemma is simple. Who holds the authority to execute that control? Headquarters or the local subsidiary? Management must choose between centralized decision-making, where strategic power remains at the top, and decentralized decision-making, where power is pushed down to operating teams. This table isolates the specific variables that force an organization toward one end of the spectrum or the other. Look at the left column. Large capital investments, high degrees of technology, and homogeneous product lines strongly encourage centralization. Headquarters hoards control under these conditions to protect proprietary assets, enforce standard quality, and minimize financial risk. The right column shows the inverse: high product diversification, vast geographic distance from headquarters, and the presence of highly competent native managers push a corporation to decentralize. Ford Motor Company's global expansion provides a clear demonstration of these variables in action. Facing a stagnant U.S. market, Ford shifted production closer to local consumers, opening plants directly in Nigeria, China, and Thailand. This required delegating operational authority across vast geographic distances to capture regional demand. Structural authority is not a matter of corporate philosophy. It is a calculated response to capital risk, market distance, and product diversity. However, aligning the structural authority is useless if the cultural approach to control creates friction with the subsidiary's workforce. This chart maps out 2 deeply entrenched, opposing philosophies of management culture. The left column defines an internal control model, typical of U.S. multinationals. It emphasizes dominating the environment, capturing markets aggressively, and prioritizing internal conviction over outside conditions. The right column defines an external control model, often seen in Asian firms. This approach prioritizes harmony, flexible compromise, and adapting naturally to external market shifts. Severe operational friction occurs when an internally oriented headquarters forces its aggressive, unyielding culture onto an externally oriented subsidiary that values compromise and adaptation. Similarly, European firms often lean on behavioral control, tracking qualitative aspects of how work is done. This clashes directly with the American reliance on strict, quantifiable output and rigid budgets. exporting a business model requires translating the cultural control mechanism. If the metrics don't align with local values, the workforce will reject the system entirely. The ultimate stress test for any control architecture is an unpredictable external political shock. In 2012 and 2014, ExxonMobil established joint ventures with the Russian oil company Rosneft to explore the Arctic. Joint ventures are notoriously difficult to govern, requiring an intricate balance of objectives and control between competing corporate partners. That delicate balance shattered when U.S. sanctions dropped in 2014, heavily restricting American involvement in Russian energy projects. The regulatory environment became relentlessly complex and costly. By 2018, ExxonMobil was forced to completely withdraw from the joint ventures, absorbing a $200 million loss. Even the most resource-rich corporations must operate a control system capable of absorbing geopolitical realities, or those operational complexities will rapidly compound into massive financial losses. This exposes the primary trap of international management evaluation, relying entirely on top-line financial return on investment. A subsidiary's profit margin is easily distorted by external factors, like currency devaluation or specific localized regulatory friction. To get an accurate picture of performance, global leaders must invest in localized metrics, understanding whether a workforce expects individual credit, as in America, or group recognition through quality control circles, as in Japan. Global corporate supremacy is not achieved by writing an immaculate master plan in a home country boardroom. It is achieved by building an agile control architecture, one that empowers local adaptation and survives the volatility of an unpredictable world.